Simagic have been causing a little bit of a stir recently with their Evo series of wheelbases, but is the hype that they've been generating actually real? Well, let's find out in this video by taking a look at two of those wheelbases, the Evo Sport and the Evo Pro. Just quickly before we get into the meat of this video, I do want to put a disclaimer out there and say that Simagic have sent me these two wheelbases for free. But then the information that they have provided here for this video, they've had no further input on the editing process and are seeing it live for the first time at the same time as you are. If you do want to support the channel, there is an affiliate link down in the description below that will give me a small commission if you purchase anything from the Simagic official store. And during the checkout process, if you want to use code YORKIE in all caps, you will get a 3% discount. So if you'd like to support me, using that affiliate link would be very much appreciated, and at the same time feel free to use that discount code as well and you get a nice little bit off of your purchase. So let's get into the details of these new Alpha Evo wheelbases. The series comes with three different options. You've got the Alpha Evo Sport, the Alpha Evo and the Alpha Evo Pro. The Alpha Evo Sport produces 9 Nm of torque, the Alpha Evo produces 12 Nm and the Alpha Evo Pro produces the most at 18 Nm. The only other differences across the three wheelbases are the dimensions and their weight. Both the Alpha Evo Sport and Alpha Evo weigh at 6,236 grams with 281mm in length, 130mm in diameter and 110mm in height. The Alpha Evo Pro, however, weighs at 8,627 grams and is 317mm in length, then 130mm in width and 110mm in height. So the Alpha Evo Pro is slightly larger and is also slightly heavier than the other two wheelbases. All three wheelbases are made with precision CNC machining integrated aluminium die casting, feature a custom 5-pole servo motor with a 21-bit resolution encoder. All three use a fantastic quick release system that is universal across all Simagic wheelbases and steering wheels, and they also offer an additional quick release adapter that would allow you to use third-party wheels with the USB pass-through system. As well as adaptive cooling, they also have an RGB light ring and 3 mounting options. They can be mounted via the bottom of the wheelbase, either directly to a rig or to a desk mount if you would like to use the wheelbase on a desk. And then there's the option of purchasing separate mounting brackets that will allow you to mount either from the side or to the front of the wheelbase. However, these are sold separately. And then finally, there is the price, with the Evo Sport costing $399, the standard Alpha Evo costing $549, and then the Evo Pro costing $699. This is all stated from the Simagic website, and of course before shipping and tax. Now, as mentioned, I was given the Alpha Evo Sport and the Alpha Evo Pro to test. I mounted these directly to my rig via the normal mounting options, so I wasn't able to test either the side mount or the front mounting options that would require the purchase of the separate mounting brackets. Unfortunately, I also wasn't able to test the quick release adapter that would allow third-party wheels to be used on the Alpha Evo series of wheelbases. Simagic didn't send me one as they have recognised an issue with the quick release adapter, and that issue being, I believe, a slight power delivery problem when using certain third-party wheels with the Alpha Evo wheelbases, but they have stated that they're already working on the fix and are actively prototyping a better solution that should fix the problem in the future. Hopefully, once they implement that solution, they'll send a quick release adapter out to me so I can get testing with third-party wheels on the Alpha Evo series and test out that USB pass-through functionality. So it is a bit of a shame that I'm not able to test one of the key features here on the Alpha Evo wheelbase. However, it is the right approach that Simagic are taking here, having identified the issue fairly early and trying to implement a solution as soon as possible before it becomes too widespread. But let's move on to what I can tell you about these Alpha Evo wheelbases from my 2 weeks of testing. We'll begin with the aesthetics, and there isn't really too much to say about the Alpha Evo wheelbases. They've got a long, simple, rectangular design with some nice rounded edges, the main body being the precision CNC machine aluminium. At the front and back there is some plastic there, but it's not too noticeable and doesn't really detract from the look of the wheelbase too much. At the back there are vents for the active cooling, and there is this sort of textured pattern here at the front that does almost look like vents, but they are filled in. It's not actually any holes there for air to pass in or out of. Also front and center, as you can see, is the RGB light ring. There is plenty of customization options here, allowing you to choose the color of that light ring that lights up there as you're driving along, as well as additional functionality to have that light ring flash various different colors depending on various different telemetry outputs. You can hook it up to the traction control or ABS systems on the car, so the light bar flashes at you whenever those systems become active. Likewise, have it flash at you when it's detecting wheel slip, and then you can also use flags as well. So if there's an incident up ahead, the light bar will flash yellow to give you the warning of the yellow flag. Likewise, if you've got a faster class car in a multi-class scenario, or if you're about to be lapped, you'll have the blue flag flash at you. And I found it's not too distracting either, even at a relatively high brightness. The wheel does block the majority of the light ring, so it's only really the top part that you're actually going to see whilst you're driving. So in practice, it is quite a nice little touch that I do like. It does add an additional immersive element there, being tied directly to the game that you're playing. There is, however, one thing on these wheelbases that I'm not exactly a fan of when it comes to the aesthetics, and that is the little holes on the side for the side mounting and front mounting brackets. If you are going to be front or side mounting this wheelbase, then obviously this isn't going to be so much of an issue for you, but for those of you who are mounting the wheel directly onto a rig or mounting it to a desk mount to mount it on a desk, the holes on the side that are there for that front and side mounting options are completely uncovered, and the threads on the inside of those are silver. They're not painted in this nice black or very dark kind of gunmetal grey look that the Alpha Evo wheelbases actually use. So having those being silver, they kind of really stand out. What would have been nice is to have a little cap or something that we could put over the sides of those just to hide them. It's obviously not a deal breaker by any means, but it would have just been a nice little polishing final touch to finish off the overall look of these wheelbases. When it comes to functionality, this is where these wheelbases really shine. Around the back there is a power on and off switch, allowing you to switch the wheelbase on and off at will, and a ton of CAN, USB and CAN FD protocol ports, giving full support to Simagic devices when plugged directly into the wheelbase. You can see 3 USB ports here. Unfortunately, they don't function as your kind of standard USB port, so you can't plug in a USB stick or like a keyboard directly into the wheelbase and have it function in that sense. So whilst it may have been nice and a potential missed opportunity here, it's not really something that you kind of expect or require from a wheelbase, and it only would have driven the cost of these wheelbases up as well. Coming back round to the front, we've got the RGB light ring as we previously mentioned, but above that we've got a series of connectors for dash compatibility. Simagic are yet to release any dashes, but this is obviously them future-proofing the Alpha Evo wheelbases. Undoubtedly the best part about these Alpha Evo wheelbases is their force feedback system. 5-pole servo motors are designed to be lightweight, reducing the amount of inertia, providing sharper and smoother, more precise force feedback feel. They're also designed to reduce cogging, and comparing directly to the Moser R12 wheelbase that had been running as my main wheelbase for the majority of the last few months, there is quite a noticeable difference in this particular area. Whilst the Moser R12 did feel nice and smooth and did have a good amount of feedback, there was a slight cogging feel to it, especially when you have the wheelbase turned off. However, with both the Alpha Evo Sport and the Alpha Evo Pro, there is absolutely zero cogging as you rotate the wheel shaft around, and likewise when you actually hook wheelbases up to the power and turn the wheelbases on, there's also zero cogging in these areas as well. This helps the force feedback feel ultra buttery smooth and helps heighten some of the force feedback details that may have been masked by other wheelbases. One of the more prominent effects that I hadn't really felt in the past was understeer in ACC. It was something that I was more relying on visually or through sound cues or through the minimal detail that I was previously feeling on the Moser R12, but it's immediately noticeable on both the Evo Sport and the Evo Pro, with a vibration coming through whenever the front tyres are starting to scrub and the car is starting to understeer wide from the apex. Running over rumble strip curves provides a nice rumble feel through the force feedback. Attacking larger curves provides a nice sharp amount of torque and kick coming through the force feedback. And then the response to the wheels starting to slip and the car beginning to oversteer, the car starting to go away from you, is also ultra quick, sharp and responsive, especially compared to other wheelbases. I found this to be the case with both the Evo Sport and the Evo Pro wheelbases, with the two being pretty comparable to one another and performing pretty much similarly. Both provided fantastic driving feel, very enjoyable. I will say that the Evo Sport did feel slightly marginally smoother than the Evo Pro, mainly because the Evo Pro, with its higher peak torque at 18 Nm in comparison to the Evo Sport with its 9 Nm, the Evo Pro was therefore emphasising the higher frequency details, and they were coming through a bit more prominently because there's more headroom to bring those details through the force feedback signal in comparison to the Evo Sport, where it may be slightly masked, or those higher frequency details may be a little less prominent, and therefore the overall experience does feel a little bit smoother. On the other side of that though, with the Evo Pro with its 18 Nm, that greater forces provided an extra sense of stability, an extra sense of weight to the overall car feel, and the way that the car was actually handling was able to pick up some of the wheel slip details a little bit easier. Obviously, with that greater amount of bandwidth, there's a lot more disparity between the various different forces, and you can distinguish things a little bit better than you could with something that is half of that, say with the 9 Nm. If the overall weight of the steering wheel also, or the force feedback, is too heavy for you with the Evo Pro and that 18 Nm, you can also of course reduce this down to a level that is comfortable for you. Within the Sim Pro Manager software, there are various options that you can use to fine-tune the force feedback feel to your liking. There are a number of different presets tailored to each individual game to use as a starting point, and then you can fine-tune the various settings from there. After some time playing around with these presets and the various different options that you can fine-tune, I ended up coming to pretty much the same sort of similar settings for various different racing sims. ACC and Le Mans Ultimate felt the best to me once I kind of dialed the force feedback in. iRacing still felt very good, however there was some high frequency vibration that I couldn't seem to dial out at higher speeds. And then I seemed to be having some issues with Automobilista 2, where I was getting a lot of very harsh high frequency vibration that was overpowering the overall force feedback experience. It was making it very uncomfortable to drive in certain situations, and even though I was playing around with the settings trying to dial it out by increasing the slew rate or increasing the amount of filtering, which should smoothen out the force feedback signal, it wasn't really having the sort of impact that I was expecting when adjusting these settings to kind of dial this high frequency vibration out. So hopefully Simagic does improve this with a future version of the Sim Pro Manager software, making some of these settings actually have a greater and stronger effect. But I will continue to play around and tinker with the settings here within the Sim Pro Manager and see if I can bring Automobilista 2 back in line with the other titles. Maybe in the future I'll do a separate video explaining what the various different settings within the Sim Pro Manager software actually do, and also provide the settings that I use for the various different racing sims. If you do want to see that, please hit the subscribe button and also let me know down in the comments section that you want to see that video. Aside from that high frequency vibration in AMS2, the wheelbases do run nice and quiet, much like other direct drive wheels do, and also during my time testing, playing with multiple hours with the force feedback turned up to pretty much maximum 18 Nm on the Alpha Evo Pro, I hadn't noticed any heating issues. The wheelbase wasn't getting too hot to touch, and also the force feedback was remaining pretty much constant throughout the entire play session, not really dipping whenever the wheelbase was getting hot or anything like that. So the active cooling certainly seems to be doing its job. So for my final thoughts and conclusions here on the Simagic Alpha Evo wheelbases, they are definitely something that you should be putting on your list to look to upgrade to in the future. They come with a great set of features, providing really nice force feedback detail that is crisp, sharp, and very quick and responsive. As to which of the three you should be looking to upgrade to is entirely going to depend on your own personal preference and situation. Obviously, with the Alpha Evo Sport being the cheapest at $399, I imagine that this is going to be the most appealing one for those who are looking to upgrade to their first direct drive wheel, and 9 Nm is a good starting point. I also think that the Alpha Evo, the standard one at 12 Nm, is also going to be a very good choice. It's only $150 more, and with it being 12 Nm, Newton meters, there's that extra little bit of headroom and strength to play around with. And then finally, for those who do have an extra little bit of cash in the bank, you do have the Evo Pro at its 18 Newton meters. That extra torque and power does provide an extra little bit of stability. Obviously, just make sure that you've got a rig that is going to be strong enough for that amount of torque and power. But even if you find that it is a little bit too strong and it feels a little bit too heavy while steering and maintaining a constant amount of steering input through a corner, you can always dial that peak amount of torque back down towards say 14, 15, 16 Newton meters, whatever it is that you find and feel comfortable with. So to answer the question that I asked at the beginning of this video as to whether they are worth the hype that they are generating, I would say yes, they are. They're certainly living up to the high quality that Simagic is trying to produce across their products. It's certainly a very, very good wheelbase, and I can't really fault it unless I really nitpick on a few different things. It's only really kind of let down a little bit by the Sim Pro Manager software, like I said, where adjusting some of the various settings there didn't really quite have the amount of effect that I was expecting from those to kind of really fine-tune and dial out some of the aspects of the force feedback that I was getting from certain games or certain titles, and kind of really reducing those down to how I would like to feel them. But that is something that Simagic can quite easily update in the future, as it's just basically a software patch rather than having to roll out various different revisions of an actual hardware product. That's obviously a lot more difficult. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, please leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and leave your thoughts and questions down below on the Simagic Alpha Evo wheelbases. Until the next time, have fun, stay safe, and take care.